Correspondent Joe Khalil live for us on Capitol Hill following all of it. Joe, are we any closer to answering that very important question?
Not here on Capitol Hill, I can tell you that. We've been speaking to a number of senators and staff, and what we have heard is there are still lingering questions about whether the Secret Service is, at this moment, capable of keeping Donald Trump and, for that matter, Vice President Harris safe from all of the threats that they continue to get, and obviously 2 attempts now on the life of former President Trump. We've heard the acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, say in that press conference he gave that while the methodology of the Secret Service is sound, he trusts what they do. He also said there needs to be a new paradigm, a paradigm shift within the agency to go back and look at all of their protocol and decide whether that is the best course for them on a day-to-day basis to keep people like Vice President Harris and Donald Trump safe. I'm not sure that that gave a whole lot of confidence to the folks here on Capitol Hill. We are still hearing calls, some saying Congress should pass more funding for the Secret Service. Today, we've heard that. We've also heard about increasing their security presence around Donald Trump. But there are others who say that money is not going to solve what may be structural issues within the Secret Service. So there's a lot of that back and forth discussion today. We did speak with a former Secret Service agent who has worked on multiple presidential details. He tells us the problem is beyond funding. There are a lot of things that are unique to Donald Trump, he says, that make it a bit more difficult for the Secret Service and for his detail, one being the locations in open places like the golf course. But take a listen to what he said about why it is a particular challenge in this moment.
I have worked security operations at that golf course. I have supervised them. I have managed the protective operations. And from what I can tell, the security footprint that was in place for former President Trump was nearly identical to what the president would have without the presence of the White House Communications Agency and the White House military aid. There's a misunderstanding, or perhaps people are using hyperbole. Former President Trump was at a 400-acre golf course in the middle of a city. You don't shut down the city even when the president's there. You don't shut down every road. You don't circulate in steel. It's considered an off-the-record movement. I don't want to reveal too much, but a pedestrian standing on Pennsylvania Avenue right now is under 150 yards away from the President of the United States if he is in the Oval Office.
Nichole, we've also been talking to lawmakers about something that, frankly, I don't think is getting talked about enough, and that is that you can't just add Secret Service agents to someone's detail, especially a president or a vice president. It takes, we are told, anywhere from 4 to 10 years to train a Secret Service agent to rise up to that level where they're guarding a president or a candidate, at that level. So this isn't something that happens overnight. That is a question that lawmakers here have been sort of fumbling with as we've asked them about it. There are no clear answers to how to fix that other than they say Secret Service is going to need to get creative, potentially borrowing people, manpower from other agencies that may have similar training. There are a lot of questions that are still left on the table that I think lawmakers and the agency itself are working through.
Oh, absolutely. In addition to training, it also, of course, like everything, takes money. I know there's been talk of more money for the Secret Service in this next government funding bill. Do we know if it's still on the table?
It is on the table. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says if the Secret Service needs more money, more funding, if they're asking for it, he will certainly be willing to do that. Republicans in the House say the same thing. So it's likely they will get that kind of funding, potentially even in the next couple of weeks. But again, the question goes to, they say they have short-term needs and long-term needs. The funding may help with short-term and long-term. Does it solve this current problem of you've got these threats and now attempts on former President Trump's life? That answer, it's a lot harder to say with clarity that that's going to solve those kinds of issues.
All right, Joe Khalil reporting and following all of this for us from Capitol Hill. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.